Even at the early stages of World War II, Britain was struggling to produce its own aircraft in sufficient numbers to continue fighting not just the war in Europe, but of course progressing into the war in the Pacific. Aircraft such as the Avenger behind me, the Corsair, Wildcats, Martlets, Hellcats were all part of a package of aircraft delivered from America as brand new aircraft types and part of the Lend Lease program, which was an agreement between Britain and America to supply hardware to the war footing. Without the delivery of these aircraft in their hundreds, it would have been impossible for the British Royal Navy to keep its aircraft carriers effectively equipped. Many Fleet Air Arm pilots were actually sent away to America, not only to learn how to fly these particular types of aircraft, but also to undergo their training in a safe environment, a long way away from the war in Europe, a long way away from blackouts and being bombed every night and food shortages. It was a much, much easier environment to put the pilots away from that danger zone and teach them in bigger, wider open spaces with very wide open airfields. It was an ideal training zone to take pilots to America. But of course, then they came back with knowledges of the aircraft they were about to start flying, the Corsairs, the Avengers, the Hellcats. So all of that was a vital part of learning how to understand and use and fly these Lend aircraft. The other important aspect is that operating these purpose-built carrier-based aircraft, wide undercarriages, strong fuselages, actually purpose-built to operate on aircraft carriers, having those as purpose-built aircraft, operating them in the Pacific alongside the US Fifth Fleet, who are also operating the same aircraft. Spares, tooling, operation of the aircraft between everybody, the Americans and the British, just gets simpler because everybody's using the same aircraft type. Taking pilots or trainee pilots away from Britain and away from the conflict happening in Europe has to be done in a balanced fashion. You have new recruits coming into the services all the time, but of course you need to be able to farm that out into the areas that you need, and some of them need training, some of them need more intensive training, and some of those may need to go to this flying training program away in Canada and America. So that's a very difficult balancing act that the government and the Air Ministry has to calculate and make sure that it doesn't take too many pilots away from areas that are needed much closer to home. So just by saying pilots go to America to undergo their training is a very simple thing to say, but there's actually a huge amount to think about when you're still trying to coordinate and move the pieces of war game that's going on in Europe. Saying send your pilots to America also, again, sounds very simple, but getting them there in large numbers to attend these training programs has its own difficulties. The Battle of the Atlantic is, of course, raging at this point. So sending troop ships across the Atlantic with the threat of submarines attacking them at any moment is a major consideration. You can't fly safely that many people across the Atlantic at that stage. We don't have the transport planes that operate at the speeds that we understand today, so they have to be going by ship, and that of course has its own perils and dangers involved. I think all of the aircraft, all of the Lend aircraft, whether they were fighter aircraft, reconnaissance aircraft, torpedo and bomber aircraft, all of them played a vital part. No individual aircraft or aircraft type had any more significance than the other, but as a group and a package of brand new aircraft types, sturdy, robust, designed and built in a country that wasn't suffering the same war footing as Britain at that time, that wasn't suffering the material shortages, the food shortages, wasn't being bombed every night in all of its industrial areas and facilities, being able to concentrate on building brand new top-class aircraft in very, very high numbers. That's the most significant part of what was able to feed that final stage of the war in the Pacific.